My name is Njeri Jomo. I'm the CEO and Principal Officer of Jubilee Health Insurance. One of the things that has been very useful in my career journey is the fact that one of the advices I got from one of the people I worked with was, in every environment, in every corporate environment, the higher you go, you're likely to still encounter a lot of politics. However, competence always beats politics. So in the event that you find you're going to have to choose to be one of two things, to be a politician or to work on your work ethic. But there's no combination that can be beaten when you're dealing with work ethic and a bit of politicking here and there. And politics in this sense is not the typical dirty politics that people see it as, but it's really we're all competing for resources in one form or the other. It is how well you can make a strong case for what you need. So at the end of the day, regardless of how political the environment is, work ethic and competence always beats politics. I tend to agree. It is true that for women, it often, we've been cultured not to speak about what we do. Often, even for women, when you stand up for yourself, it's always, oh, she's showing off, she's doing that. And I think it's subtly there in terms of how we are cultured to believe that we shouldn't speak about our achievements, we should stay in the corner and let people find out what we are capable of. But again, and I'm a strong believer in the word of God, you cannot light a candle and hide it under a bushel. If you are doing something, speak about it. And I also believe you're your own strongest advocate. So if you're doing it, speak about it. So it's true, we have a lot of work as women to step away from this cultural belief that when we speak about ourselves, it suggests we're not humble enough. I think it's not humility not to speak about what you're doing. And it's true, men have an advantage. You're told men apply for jobs with 40% of the competence. For women, we try and apply when it's 100%. So I think for women and female leaders, it's an aspect of saying, okay, so if I'm really good at my competence, what if I was actually able to advocate and speak for myself? How much of a stronger leader would I be? So, and leveraging on that as a strength. It's situational. Sometimes I'm head, sometimes I'm heart, sometimes I'm a bit of both. I keep believing that as you build an organization, you really do need to get the facts right. You need to know that your fundamentals are in place. And that really is not something about feeling. It's about thinking and getting the facts where they are. But again, you're working with people. And the higher you go, the more you realize that you're really going to need to inspire and get these people to deliver what you truly believe should be delivered. Now that's where the challenge begins, because these are not people you have been brought up with. These are people who have completely different ways of thinking, completely different personalities. How do you get them to rally around what you believe they should go? So that's going to be the heart element of understanding what inspires them, what excites them, what makes them move, and being able to help you drive the hard facts. So it's going to be both heart and head. I listened to someone very recently who said something profound that I've not forgotten yet, that when you're faced with big decisions, you have to find a data point for the head, a data point for the heart, and also listen to your gut, because your gut knows what right decisions feel like. And that's perhaps why I'm saying that it's really going to have to be both. I think running a big organization has its many moments. The biggest challenge, I think, is always going to be getting everyone aligned in a certain direction. As again I've said, very many different people, diverse personalities, diverse interests, and a lot of interests at play. How do you get everyone pushing in the same direction and wanting the same things? I'm also a very big advocate, and my team knows that I speak a lot about values and your value system as an individual and as a leader, as a critical bedrock for the kind of business that you are. And always making sure that our values are aligned, that the people I'm getting on board, that we have an alignment in values. If we say integrity, is it integrity on face value, or is it integrity that it is lived and it is something that we do on a day-to-day basis? If we say it is passion, are we all passionate? If it's about customer centricity, is it a good word to have, or is it something that we live by and we do? But the other thing is, I am often a strong believer in creating a system that is, in a sense, predictable in terms of being able to manage outcomes. And that often assumes a lot of things. And I borrow the example of in one of my academic visits, I managed to visit Daimler in Stuttgart. And it was amazing seeing how they work on this. When they're putting in the Mercedes cars, it's a conveyor belt, and everyone has something they do. And seeing how sequenced and repetitive it was, and how well coordinated that everyone was in sync, doing the same thing and getting it done along at the same time. It will be a dream to achieve that for what we do. It will be a dream for me to know that at every touch point, the customer has almost a standardized, exceptional kind of service feel. It will be good to have predictability in certain things and how they are done. But of course, we are all human beings, we are all dynamic. So the biggest challenge is creating a system that is predictable and can be able to continue giving value for that customer, for that shareholder, that enables you to be able to manage all the variables. But again, I also say, while it is a challenge, it's perhaps the reason why the job is interesting. The dynamism of it means that every other day you're waking up to all these changing realities and you have to remain adaptable to them. The culture I have created, and I believe we have within Jubilee, is a very vibrant, engaged culture, but the biggest word within our space is ownership and accountability. I am a strong believer in ensuring that, in really creating spaces that my team feels empowered enough to do what they need to do where they are. Because I believe when people are thriving at an individual level, you get the best of themselves within the organization. We've been working very hard over the last 1 year or so on making sure that people understand how they play into the bigger picture of where we are trying to go as a business, because it's important that they see themselves. So you paint the picture very clearly. Look, this is where we are trying to go. But how do you fit into this? How do you enable this? And how is what you're doing really helping us get there? And giving them the tools and the empowerment to be able to make decisions. Yes, fail fast, fail forward, but you have to allow that. You can't always be hoping that everyone gets everything 100% right, but creating an environment that allows for people to have ownership and accountability, that they're empowered enough to be able to contribute to the bigger picture. And I'm excited, and please note the word is excited to come to work every day because they feel that they're making an impact. This is what I say, I'm not the boss. None of us is, and it's the same thing that we have had to do as leadership. If I want to see you, I often don't call you to my office. I'll come to where you sit, because then people feel that you are part of. We are all doing this together. It is a team win, and more importantly, what I keep telling the team, I tend to stand at the front and take the credit, but it should never be lost to anyone that it is everyone's work. It is people who are getting things done. Most of the time, the team puts the work together. Everyone is really putting in. Yes, I'll stand at the front and say it, and which is why, in a sense, I'm always more recently quick to say, this is what the team has done, because it is not, I can stand at the front and, in a sense, take credit because I have the good fortune of being the CEO of the business. But let's be very honest, it's not me. It is people who come to work every day and put in that effort and say, I'm going to do this, and put in their collective efforts to make Jubilee Health the great business that it is. It is the 250 people who wake up every day in my business, who pick a call to serve a client, and who are sorting out one thing or the other, and speak with our doctor and speak with our hospital, some 24 hours, right? And these are all the people that make the business. I am just perhaps the person standing at the front of it, perhaps the one person who is enabling them here or there, but they're the ones really getting the job done. So a culture of empowerment and a culture of accountability and ownership. Specific trends, the biggest one will be technology, and I think we all are going to be able to avoid the impact that technology has. And in every change, there's always going to be positive impacts, but there are also going to be challenges as well. The more we've adopted technology generally as a country and as human beings, we now have it on our phones. We are all doing all of these things. The interesting one that we often haven't anticipated is the impact of social media on mental health. So you will find that as an insurance company, you will find that mental health is a conversation we're having now more than we typically used to just have about your body is hurting or this and that. Mental health is now something that we actively address and see. Yes, we cover mental health as an insurer. In fact, we even going to, our conversation is more about mental wellness, because we say, while I'm treating your body, it starts with the mind, it starts with the head. If I'm not fixing it from that point, then everything else I'm doing really has to ride on who you are as a whole person. So we do cover mental wellness as a mental illness and mental wellness. We do cover both. So that has been the side of it that was unanticipated for us. But the upside has also been the other side, where technology is doing some amazing things for our business. You may not know this, but we are leveraging on AI and learning AI for claims adjudication. So today when you go to hospital, I can break down to you the cost of every single item, including the bag that your medicine is packed in. And it's so beautiful being able to see what that is able to do. But there's another side to it. We are now doing telematics as a business. With your smartwatch, I can begin to tell how many steps do you need to walk as an individual in a day for us to consider you healthy. At what level of exercise does that begin to impact on your wellness and your remaining well as an individual? And you know what's amazing about that is we are now creating a Kenyan and an African data set. Because today, when we look at data sets on who is a healthy individual, how many steps do you need to walk for us to say that's good enough exercise to keep you off the lifestyle disease trend? I'm not sure we today have a data set that is uniquely African for our environment. We began collecting that, and I think it really paints an interesting future where we are going, because we'll be able to predict right down to how many steps you need for it to be preventative, as opposed to when you're already unwell and in hospital and we're trying to treat you, which by then we'll put in mitigations, but I must assure you it's absolutely expensive by then. So the good thing about how we're approaching telematics is what we have is an app called Maisha Fiti. Maisha Fiti really drives a wellness, actually we call it behavior change, in terms of more fitness focused. Making it more motivational for you to want to be in good shape. But why would you want to work with Jubilee? Now the good news, what I'll tell you, Eddie, is whether you have an Apple Watch or IMO, incidentally, even with just your own phone, because you will know your phone already tracks your steps and your health, we are able to track that and aggregate it into this app, into how many steps have you walked. We make it fun because we put in challenges, and at times it's community challenges. Right now we're doing a challenge at company level where the number of steps, we're supposed to try and do 2 million steps. I'm working, really been interesting, because when we began the pilots and we were saying, does it really work? That if I walk, how many steps do I walk? And does it truly have an impact on my well-being? And we began to see that has an impact from the testimonials of those we did in the initial sprints. But what has been so interesting is discovering, we always look for what are the motivators. And you find what motivates, for example, every year everyone signs up for the gym, myself included. So how come we never go? And we wanted to understand what will make this work, because our objective is to make it work. Our objective is to get you up and running. So we said, what do we want you to do? And we began late last year telling people, you know what, do anything for the steps. So I'm not going to tell you walk. If you like dancing, fine, then that's what you do. But do anything, but whatever you do, put in the steps, because at least our estimate right now, if an adult over 35 years does 7,500 steps a day, they're already on their journey to wellness. So you'll find, which has become quite interesting now within our business, and most of us, I'll get home and I look at my watch and say, oops, I've walked 6,000, and maybe I'm sort of feeling I'm a bit tired, I don't want to go. Then I go on the ranking leaderboard and find somebody else today just did 10,000. And guess what we typically do? You're walking around your house. So if you ask, why would you do it with Jubilee? Because for us, we've gamified it, make it fun and introducing community and making it motivational for you to want to do it together with others. But over and above that, we reward you. We have partners who give you discounts just because you're putting in the effort. But there's the absolute cherry on the cake, that for us, when you have a policy with Jubilee, the retail policies that we have, and you're putting in the exercise, we give you discounts for living healthier. So it's actually beginning to pay for you to put in the work. So if now it's about money, you totally put in the steps, right? Because it's contributing to your health insurance premium. It's beginning to mean that because you're putting in the work, you're less likely to end up with a major lifestyle disease, and therefore we are going to charge you less. And this is a trend we expect to really catch on, because it's something that's not been done in Kenya before, but it's something that we think that if as people begin to appreciate the impact of that, we can begin to avoid getting to a place where a lot of people are obese, a lot of people are already unwell, and then we are treating. And today when we look at our data, we are seeing the lifestyle diseases earlier and earlier. The earlier we can change that trend and go back to a state where, it can wait much later, and I don't have to deal with diabetes and all these other chronic illnesses a lot earlier, and I deal with them much later, even better, because it has a cost implication. Yes, so data privacy is perhaps, in my view, one of the best, and I know it has been seen as a challenge, but one of the best things that could happen within our market, because we already churn out so much data but had very little control of where it's going. And remember, for Kenyans, you look at mobile penetration and adoption, it's very high, internet use, which means you're already churning out data all the time. And even for us, we remained alive to the fact that, remember, first and foremost, we're a health insurer. So typically we have a lot of health data on a normal day, right? Then we add in telematics, and then we are collecting in a lot more data. So for us, we've embraced the aspect of data protection. We make sure that, yes, we inform our customers of what their data rights are and have them, any interaction we have. If you come into Jubilee, you will sign consents for the use of your data. If you sign in for telematics purposes, you will also sign in for that, and we make them very explicit, because we want to let you know what you're using the data for. We are very protective about where the data can be used. And for us, we prefer to use it within our jurisdiction and within our organizations within just this jurisdiction, and for the sole purpose of protecting our consumer. And again, as I've said, traditionally we've been a health insurer, so what we are receiving is not really new, it's just more enhanced data, and you'll find some sets of data are completely anonymized in terms of how we'll collect them, so then there's minimal exposure. Now, more importantly, and even before we go into technology, is even if you look at a typical health insurance company, the kind of data we are collecting. Now, I will tell you, today Jubilee Health Insurance has about 17.8% of market share. That is about 11.8 billion of worth of business, or slightly almost 300,000 customers. Now, those are people who we all interact with around here. It means that we have interest when who is in hospital, which hospital they are in, and more importantly, if they are heshimiwa, we are that much more. So data protection has always been something we actively do. And you'll find that part of our data policies, beyond them being on paper, is today most of our staff cannot even download certain sets of data if it's not what they should have visibility of. And even those who have access on mobile phone cannot download a document. You cannot even take a screenshot of the document on your phone. And we have had to invest in technology to protect the kind of data we have. But we keep thinking, as the market becomes more and more enhanced, and people keep looking, we keep saying everyone is always looking for an opportunity, because data protection means more litigation, isn't it? It means someone decides not to go to work and they're just looking for an exposure to sue and make 10 million shillings. So we continue to look at our exposures and make sure that we are protecting our data and our customers' data. Let me begin at where I am. As a mother, I have a hard time just getting my children off gadgets, and I think we all get to find a safe balance for how to use technology. What we have done, and I keep saying maybe this is an area that we all have to continue thinking through and developing solutions for, is that what we've done as part of our mental wellness propositions, we provide opportunities for counseling. And counseling includes getting people off gadget addiction. If you look at the social media that gets you addicted, it is, and we look at which platforms, and without naming names, it's ones that have content and you keep flipping through and have certain levels of control. And I know there's so many debates, including worldwide, on banning certain social sites or otherwise. So I'd say social media is not entirely wrong. I'm sure you use podcasts, you listen to audiobooks. There are sides of it that are really great. But which ones do we seem to have an issue with? is social, where the content is unregulated and in a sense is harmful. Because I'm not sure you're going to have someone who's going to struggle with listening to too many books. I'm not sure there's anyone. We've not had a social media complaint about listening to too many books. So there's a kind of content that is causing us to be concerned. And that content is perhaps where the issues need to be. So today, perhaps at Jubilee, what we don't have is an opportunity to regulate that. But what we ask you to use in terms of our social media is good content for you. But in the event that you find that whoever you're with has an addiction, social media addiction or otherwise, as I've said, our mental wellness programs, part of that has counseling. And part of that counseling can address social media addiction. So if it's someone who's even younger, who's struggling with it, you find that they'll just get a small package which has sessions. And I can tell you, you can come and take a mental wellness package without buying anything else. So that's what you get from us. It has a number of sessions. You'll speak with a counselor. You'll work through this issue. So it becomes a lot more focused to what you're dealing with. You even find that people are even dealing with counseling for intoxication, or because addiction is addiction for many different things. So we think it's true, mental wellness and this whole mental health area is going to be a very big conversation as we go on. It's without doubt going to be a big conversation because of the speed of innovation and what we are being exposed to. And I think there's going to need to be a lot of work even with working with government and policy to make sure that the right policies are in place to continue protecting users. Jubilee Health collaborates with very many different providers. We find that we are good at certain things, but there are certain things other people have already built infrastructures that we can collaborate on. So we, as part of one of the recent propositions we've introduced into the market called Always With You, where we're telling our customers, look, healthcare can be quite a maze, can be quite a hassle. We're going to always be with you and help you figure this out. We've collaborated with a number of partners, one for telemedicine, so that then they're able to talk to a doctor and be able to get all the diagnosis. Because again, our typical adult problem is when we are unwell, we self-medicate. But we are saying, can it start with just speaking to a doctor? Fine, you're seated in the office or you're so busy in your business hustling. How about you just get on the phone, talk to a doctor, get the right diagnosis. If we need more tests, then we do this even at the pharmacies, where we'll make sure that you can have the vitals done, we can get any blood tests, we can even get blood tests done where you are, so we can be able to know how you're really doing. We do drug delivery to where you are. So we collaborate with very many different partners to be able to make our business work. Today, just to make Always With You work, I can think of almost about 7 or 8 partners who we are working with to make it work. To do our claims adjudication, to do what we are doing with AI, part of that we develop in-house because we have a digital factory within the business. Part of that we collaborate with others to make it work. It is true, and as I've said, even as we're speaking about fitness, we find that in Kenya, communities really do inspire how we do things. And we've taken this up even on our fitness app. Maisha Fiti has communities because we find a lot of things are done together. And we've gone a step further to work on these communities. For example, for us, you'll be interested to find out that we have clubs. For example, we have communities for new moms and our moms club. So we have new moms, we have moms to be. You'll be surprised when we even have seasoned moms. That's going through perimenopause and menopause. We have clubs for even those with lifestyle diseases, and so that we can be able to manage them together. In engaging externally, we also work with communities, different communities where we find like-minded engagement or where we can be able to solve various issues. So Jubilee recognizes the role of community that I must highlight, because we find that, again, as we said, living and preventative healthcare really is around motivation. And we found that motivation is linked to community. If we're doing it with others, we are more likely to do it than if we're doing it alone. So it's really something that we continue to structure offerings around. And that's what I said, if you go through the app, you'll actually find a communities area where we encourage you to be part of the communities. A lot of conversations go in. For example, I'm in the Moms Club, and you'll find conversations including house girl, or including it's the middle of the night. It's the middle of the night, my child has a fever, or what is this? And they take a photo and say, what's going on here? So I think it's really part of our DNA as Kenyans. We really do like to do things together. And therefore it's something that we use because we find that to drive what we do, it's really community-based. But I also must touch on something. Remember, Today when you're unwell, or when someone within your setup is unwell, it's likely that you're going to be part of that conversation. So healthcare, incidentally, is a community endeavor, which is why every time someone is unwell, you're in a WhatsApp group contributing. So you cannot have healthcare without communities. As we continue growing business, I think as you said rightly, you have to choose between competition or collaborating, because I mean it's best that you choose to find areas of interest and work on those together. We cannot be a jack of all trades. We can develop our technology and do some things and do them well, but there are things we feel that other people do well. I'm a health insurer. As Jubilee Health, what we do is we are health insurers. What do we choose to be? Because whatever we choose to be, we have to allocate resources and allocate time in that direction. So we identify areas where we feel that others are doing a better job and work with them in that area. And the areas we feel where our strengths play at best, we do those, and we've done those really well. You're right, there are areas where part of the people we work with could be able to take over what we do, or alternatively as a business, because we are well resourced, could also do the same. But most of the time in our agreements, we always like to look for partners who are like-minded, who are clear that what we're doing is we're going to collaborate to do the business that we do. And we're fortunate to have found quite a number of partners who are in that line. Incidentally, we don't just cooperate with partners who are within our industry. We also work with other companies who are insurers as well, who do the same business we do, and we work with them and work on consortiums and do business together. We believe that competition is really, so you find your competitive edge, but there are places where you genuinely do business when you're doing it together. You do better business together. There are a lot of reasons for why the insurance industry really struggles with insurance uptake. And some of those I'll highlight perhaps come with, yes, affordability, but I'll also say understanding what insurance is and what insurance does. And most of the time I listen to this conversation where people say, I didn't use my cover, can I have my money back? And I usually tell them, okay, you didn't use your pay TV this year, I'm sure they didn't refund something. So I think there's still some work we have to do in terms of consumer education and people really understanding what insurance does. That insurance is a risk transfer mechanism. The other part we have to do, and as an industry we have a lot of work to do, is on trust. That we move away from our jargon, make it simple, make it in English, and help people understand this is what you've bought, and then be able to make an informed decision and take on what they understand they have bought. A lot of work to do that, so we can then work on our legacy issues of trust. A lot of work there. But there's an issue around culture. That if you think about it, people will tell you they don't want to take out health insurance, but Eddie, they're going to ask you to contribute. So essentially you're the insurance policy, because insurance is actually collective. We come together and a few will be affected, and the amount. So if you think about it, you'll take out a cover for $1 million, pay around about 20,000 shillings. You didn't pay $1 million, but if you go to hospital, you're going to use up to $1 million, isn't it? So that's really what we do. It's collective. It's coming together to be able to take care of that risk. That some of us are likely to be affected and some of us are not. That's what I'm talking about, consumer education. So because I don't know that, I try to use $1 million, you try to use $1 million, everybody else is trying to use $1 million. But wait a minute, we all paid 20,000. Really, insurance is Pareto principle, vital few. Remember that you're insuring 100% with the assumption that 20% will be affected, but 80% then will contribute for the 20 who are not. So think about it, that's what the WhatsApp groups are doing. It's actually insurance. So it's not that they don't need insurance. So what we are saying is there is insurance. You're insurance for them. You're contributing whenever they need something. Now, what happens and what is likely to happen with communities like ours is that over time, while we have the spirit of Harambee where we contribute for each other, just as we said, we're community-based. It's how we understand that we solve problems. We come together. But again, we begin to find a setup where as disposable income is stretched, no matter how much we intend to support each other financially, it's going to get tougher and tougher to do that. So what is expected to happen then? That yes, we want to contribute, but we won't be able to. And by then, you'll then begin to hear that people are going to have to take insurance as a matter of necessity. Now let's take a very odd example, just to give you an example of South Africa, where insurance penetration is ahead of where we are. One of the most taken up insurances in South Africa is funeral. Now in Kenya, you cannot discuss funeral policies because in case there's something, we all meet and we contribute and it happens. But in South Africa, in terms of their culture, they don't meet to plan. What they do is in the event that something happens to you, they're going to ask you, did you take out a funeral policy? If you did not, then we really don't know how to help. Because their understanding is, God forbid, this person is no longer there, then fine, the policy will take up, they'll do the planning, they'll do the funding, they'll come in, and they do very opulent funerals, but they do it through insurance. In Kenya, our expectation is that community, somebody else will take care of it, and that is one of the reasons that has affected us. But I must say the fourth one for me is innovation. We have still a lot of work to do besides informing consumers about and understanding the offering, working on the trust and the culture part, but we have our work cut out for us in terms of insurers, in terms of making sure that we are addressing the real need and not what we imagine a consumer's need. The Kenyan insurance practice borrows heavily from the UK practice, and we are night and day. So our big question has been, how do we create insurance for Africans? What is insurance for a Kenyan? What does insurance for this market look like? And do our products then look like that? So then beginning to create products that resemble what a Kenyan consumer is willing to buy. Okay, so some really good questions there. One, community insurance is a real conversation, and even for us at Jubilee, and we've begun to pilot some with quite some interesting success, where we identify communities that are saying, we want insurance, we will administer ourselves, because that is important. You see, with communities, they have some unspoken hierarchy of who they recognize as decision makers. So we agree that they create that administrative layer, and we are able to do that, and we've done that. I think we have about 2 or 3 communities running, and we're expanding that. We're actually going a step further, where we are saying, if you're in a community area, we are actually setting up low-cost clinics that can be able to take care of those communities, and we create and give you your own offering for that area. And we've also begun to work on that with the intention that, because the out-of-pocket spend in Kenya is over 34 billion Kenya shillings, where people do pay out-of-pocket for medical care. So we've said, okay, how do we provide 34 billion out-of-pocket? So we've said, how do we help? Because it's literally living hand to mouth. That something goes wrong, and then I do it. And in most cases, for you to fund it, think about it, it's probably borrowed, isn't it? It's probably contributed most of the time. Most of the time, we don't have savings sitting around, or we are forced to dispose of something fairly quickly just to get it done, which has an impact on our investment, isn't it? So what we've said is, how do we create around communities and be able to create? So we say, if we identify a community, we then are able to create a small health facility, or rather a clinic that's able to do, because most of the issues are outpatient, deal with the small outpatient issues for a very small cost, and then we're able to handle that. So we have really begun to advance the conversation of communities, and there's a lot of ways that is likely to grow. With regard to embedding insurance, that's perhaps going to be the second biggest way that insurance is going to be sold. It's because it's not a natural thing that you're thinking about paying for insurance. And as I said, we borrow heavily from the UK market, where people, based on the wealth they have, naturally feel the need to protect. But in Kenya, I'd say we are not quite there yet. We are also still working on our savings culture, so we are not even discussing protection. We are basically at the foundation of wealth creation. And protection often follows. When you feel you have something to protect, then that means it's a culture, or rather it's a level of financial maturity conversation. So where embedding usually happens, is likely to happen for our market in terms of people doing what they normally prefer to do, and then insurance becomes a natural add-on. So we're beginning to see a lot more of a trend with telcos, with supermarkets, and that beginning to be a thing. We expect it to be. The conversation we have to continue addressing is that consumers understand truly what they've bought and are truly able to utilize it when they need it. But the embedding is likely to be the biggest way we have as much reach as possible. With regard to lipa pole pole as a concept, what is exciting for us is today the market is able to really discuss the concept of bite size. So you're right. Today, when we talk about how many Kenyans are employed in a structured way in a company, it's probably 2 million odd Kenyans, could easily get to 3. But everybody else is in a gig economy of sorts, or unstructured setup of sorts. As we look at these insights around how our customers are changing and their earning patterns, what I'll tell you is as Jubilee, we're now beginning to discuss not just monthly, but even daily. Today, we have a product where I can tell you can pay me 20 shillings a day to be able to get insurance. So I'd say as consumer trends change, you naturally will find that the responses from our end will be similar. So today, products are available and increasingly will be more available. I think technology will be a huge enabler of that, because then of the collection of these amounts, but it is already something that we have begun to do. Yes. It is true. A lot of people who buy insurance are people who either have been exposed to it in a corporate setting or have seen it work, or it's mandatory, as you're putting it with the car insurances. That is true. A lot of people still don't understand the role insurance plays, and even for those who have it, in some instances don't fully have an appreciation of what it can do for them. Insurance, as we've said, is a risk transfer mechanism. The whole concept of understanding what insurance plays is an area where we have a long way to go generally as a country, I'd say generally as a populace, in terms of understanding what role insurance plays. Again, usually insurance is protection. What are you protecting is often the first question. And when we look at our savings culture and wealth culture, generally how we deal with wealth accumulation as a country, we are more of a borrowing nation than we are around saving. Typically, you find the discipline that where the financial knowledge, or when people are well understand the relationship between wealth creation and protection, as wealth grows, you naturally find an interest in insurance. So we do have a lot of work to do in a couple of levels. One, the conversation on building a savings culture and understanding what we have is really something that we have some work to do. Typically, you buy a bigger television, you want to buy a bigger padlock. So what wealth do we have and how do we feel the need to protect it? Two, if I'm unwell, understanding how much it typically costs you to be admitted, what do I need to protect it? And you will naturally begin to see, as disposable income is strained, there will be almost an unspoken need to have insurance. And we will then need to have the right products in place to take care of that. But the role of consumer education cannot be one that cannot be understated. We have a lot of work to do to help people understand what insurance does and what insurance does not do, because every product does what it does. But also, the more you find a divergence between what insurance does and what insurance doesn't, brings back the conversation we're having earlier on. Do we truly have African-centered insurance products? Because if so much is outside, then do we really have the right products? And how much more do we need to understand the Kenyan consumer and the African consumer to tailor products that respond to them? More recently, we've seen, we all love our phones. I've seen everyone trying to, incidentally, Gen Z is all about Apple. I'm not sure what that's about. They all want an Apple product, which are not cheap. So when that phone breaks, you can see how much they value it and how much they don't want something to happen to it. Are we ensuring the things that people truly value and therefore are truly willing to pay for? So I think that is something we as insurers have work to do to be able to understand what do our consumers truly value and are therefore willing to insure. So there is that aspect of understanding our customers and what they really value and what they're willing to insure. But there's also the other aspect of consumer education in terms of understanding the role insurance plays. And the third leg for that will be truly making sure that the products we provide are customer-centric and are responding to the need of the customer. I think that will go a long way in making sure that this person up there, out in the country, really does see a need for it without us having to describe it. If you think about it, nobody tells you how to use M-Pesa. Nobody has to give you a how-to manual. You know how to use it. But what need are you addressing? You need to receive money from somebody else. So you will quickly learn how to use it. You have it on your phone. It's not imposed on you. Nobody has to give you step-by-step video how to use it. Once you get it on your phone, you know. Even if whatever the user experience is, you want to do it because it's something that you need. Understanding the need is as critical as the customers being able to buy it. It's true that generally the African customer is indeed not homogeneous. The secret to success really has to be in understanding the customer, not at just a segment level, but at a micro segment level, and understanding the unique attributes. For example, if you look at even just the Kenyan market, and one of the bigger umbrellas we like to say is the youth. the youth are so different. And then there's this big bucket, we say the youth. But in those youth, there's people who are YOLO, who live for the moment. There are those who are structured and do want, a more systematic way. There's so many different micro segments within the youth alone. So for us, the African customer is really going down to understanding the customer, not just at a segment level. So the aspects that are African in our attributes, in our culturing, for example, as Africans, we're told we are more religious. So what you'd highlighted before about people saying God will take care of it is part of the African consumer. But what are the other attributes that then come with this consumer? And if you look at this insight, it then help you be able to innovate more around this customer. There are many reasons as to why M-Pesa literally took off within our market, but struggled within others. So there are aspects around us, around how the community aspects that help us and may help us be willing to do things differently. So it is not just Africa, it is going down, drilling down further and saying, okay, what is unique? Is it about behavior? Is it about the things that we want done? And therefore, what needs emerge that we then form solutions around? So the intention of understanding the African consumer is that probably not pick them at a probably continent level, is drill down and say, okay, which market is this? It is Kenya. Which part of Kenya? And what are we seeing? What are the segments? And what are the micro segments? And what are the insights that will then inform what will innovate? I think health insurance is perhaps, just generally, healthcare is one of the biggest industry and continue to be fastest growing industries within our region and probably across the world. I still expect that we still continue to see these trends. A lot of interesting conversations within the country alone, where we have social health and discussing universal health as a concept. I still think healthcare will continue to be center stage. Technology will continue to be a very big enabler, whether it is AI, from understanding our customer and even from underwriting the kind of risks. I mean, we are going to be looking at right down to whatever we're already using it for claims adjudication. Telematics, I think, will become a lot more mainstream in terms of our lifestyle choices and how they impact what we do. I think that will continue to be an interesting trend. We're beginning to see more in the Western countries, them even going further and beginning to put on the menus the number of calories per meal. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think healthcare and technology, that convergence will be one, because both industries are already, explosive. That convergence is perhaps going to be one of the very big spaces to watch as we go forward, because we continue to expect healthcare financing will continue to be a big conversation, whether for private insurers or whether done by government. But our belief is that health insurance is not a public good alone. It's also going to have a private component. So you'll still see strong components of both enabled by technology, so that then we have more reach and more convenience for consumers. So I think the future is quite bright, and technology will be a big enabler, a lot more on the data conversations and ensuring that we are really protecting our data. Blockchain will be a big one in terms of making sure that there's certain centralized information that we can mine from. So I think it's going to be one of those industries that's really to watch in how it expands. Healthcare provision, healthcare financing, and all of that enabled by. We measure success by impact, number of lives we touch, because healthcare is real, it's tangible, and sometimes we like to say it's a matter of life and death. And we are looking at it in an entire continuum, from illness to wellness. And even if you're ill, doctors tell us there's a difference between illness and being well and continuing to actively work into a state of wellness, what we call curative care, but also big conversations on preventative, so that we don't have to get ill entirely. So today we measure impact as number of lives we have touched. We have customers who insure. We have customers who are not Jubilee customers, but we have initiatives like Afya Mashinani, where we provide care, or we provide health care to people who don't pay a shilling to Jubilee, which is part of our social impact agenda, because we believe we already do this. We can already see the disease trends. For example, right now, we've just come off floods. So what does that mean for waterborne diseases, right? We've come off our Q1 season, where we typically see a flu spike. So what does that mean, and how do we continue to help our consumers address that? So our big measure is impact. How many people are we able to reach with what we do here at Jubilee? all the data points for health are very critical to be able to create a unique health profile for every customer that we have. And this then informs what solutions and how we begin to drive care, or what healthcare will look like as we go forward. Remember, as we've said, what we're trying to create is a unique Africa data set, or probably an African or Kenyan data set for healthcare. Who is a healthy individual? What is it? What mitigations do we put in place for this person to remain on the journey to wellness? If they are ill, what are those mitigations that genuinely show a tangible turn? So we are likely to see a conversation on dynamic pricing begin to be a big conversation. But I think the more interesting innovation, which is probably going to come even within this year, is we'll begin to see centralized health records. So you don't have to go to hospital A, B, and C, repeat the scan you did last week, and that's probably going to be a social health agenda where they'll now have the centralized digital records. So at least that already begins to provide a profile of sorts. And that begins to help us see you as one. Today, if I ask you, the last scan you did, or the last test you did, is probably 10 hospitals, depending on which one you visited. And unless you go back to the same one, you're not building really one profile. That's the use of digital health records is perhaps going to be one of the most useful in terms of it being centralized. Telematics then adds the extra layer, because then we begin to understand you at a refined level. And for us, we've already begun to do that, where we're looking at our customers and saying, I've been insuring this customer for the last 10 years, what am I seeing? And we have a program called Family Physician, where we are now assigning doctors or family physicians to families, where we are able to manage your healthcare. You see that question you're being asked, is anyone in your family, has this trend, has anyone in your family had diabetes before? So we're saying, and we don't want to wait until something is wrong. But when we look at your family history, we can already begin to see the likelihood of this and that emerging. So as part of our family physician program, we attach our customers to family physicians who then work with them on a family profile and begin to actively manage these issues before they come up. And that is perhaps going to be, in our view, quite revolutionary, because if I can anticipate a generational health strain, I think then we are able to put in prevention well before we have to make it a curative conversation. So one of the things I didn't know about insurance that I knew later that helped me, which is perhaps the most basic, is about my car insurance. And I'm sure most of the time you don't know this, is that when you have an accident, beyond taking the details of the other car and you pick your abstract, you move on and insurance repairs your car. So your insurance is more about your convenience, isn't it? So it's mine. Today I say if I end up in an accident, half the time I roll up my windows and I wait for the calm outside, lock my car, take the details of the other driver, take mine, go and get my OB. I don't argue with you. We won't spend time there arguing who's paying. My insurance is for my convenience, which is why I make sure I have comprehensive insurance. So what I got to know is, as long as I have my insurance, I have actually absolutely no need to be interested in the other guy. So if we've had an accident, my insurance is for my convenience. So I take down your details, take it to my insurance, they repair my car, and they make it their business to pursue the other guy. I'm excited about possibilities and the potential of everything we could become. Every day when we're here at Jubilee, and I've said health insurance is exciting, it's fast, also emotional, because health is really about life and death. So it's not just your transactional business, it pulls you in and you have real conversations on how can we make things better. I'm excited about what things could be. When I say, for example, today it's challenging for us seeing mental health coming in for very young people. It's very, very challenging for us seeing the lifestyle and non-communicable diseases coming in quite early. And we have had questions on, okay, how do we reduce this? Because by the time someone has that disease, it's painful just seeing that trend and what ends up happening, and including to families. For example, one of the things that you'll notice, and it's perhaps something you've observed, when someone is unwell, at times, if you're not able to contribute, you're unable to even go and see them. But is it about the money you'll contribute, or is it about you really going to check on the welfare of this person? So for me, what is really exciting is the possibility of what we could do so that healthcare is not something that we have to keep handling as an emergency. that we don't have to contribute. I think that if people are unwell, it will be really fulfilling if we were able to have people get healthcare at the most basic level. And for me, it's even going farther downstream to the person who cannot afford to choose hospitals. You and I have the luxury of passing 10 hospitals and deciding to the one we prefer, but there's someone who goes to the nearest health facility with the hope that they'll get the support that they need. So for me, health financing is a real conversation, and the role insurance plays in making it accessible. That at the minute someone is sick, that card makes sure they get a bed, not go and find 400,000 for a deposit. And you can imagine what that feels like in that moment when there's so much emotional strain because all they want to do is get a bed and get them treated. So the possibilities of what we could do if we get it right for everyone who needs and deserves decent healthcare, because that's at the very heart of human dignity, and at getting it affordably and at the right price. So today I live every day to be able to provide affordable and quality healthcare through providing healthcare solutions that make that possible. So that's what keeps me awake at night and keeps me energized right now until we get that right. I think it's something that we continue to do.
Follow us on social media for more insights and more info. Fintech Association of Kenya is the voice of fintech in Kenya.